Anybody, Frank will tell you too, if there's anybody in our group that knew they were a preacher when they were younger, it was Quentin. Quentin came out the womb preaching. He did. I mean, he was in preschool. He was in nursery school. Gaga! Hallelujah! Mama! Gaga goo goo! He's just preaching as a baby. He was just ready as a baby to go. And so the call of God has been evident on his life. I introduced him to you last night. He's the pastor of Windsor Park Lutheran Church. He's the visionary that got this revival going. And so we want to receive him to preach and lead us in any way. And then after that, I'm going to say something, I don't know, help me, Lord. Put your hands together for Pastor Quentin Mumphery as he comes to bring the word.
In God we trust. People of God, in 1956, the United States of America adopted as its official motto the phrase, "In God we trust." This phrase was adopted under the premise and the pretext that the United States was a godly nation, founded on godly principles by godly people. How can a nation who calls themselves godly and say we were founded by godly people, but yet those same quote-unquote godly people enslaved black folk for 200 years? How can we call ourselves a godly nation and a godly people when we oppress our brothers and our sisters? But I want to ask the question, what God are we trusting in? There's three things I want to observe in this text, and I'm going to take my seat. I want to talk about the government, I want to talk about the governor, and I want to talk about the guarantee. Government is a thing that was established by God, and government simply means authority. In other words, in any society, there has to be a set of rules and authority for people to live by. You know, as a matter of fact, Isaiah, who's known as the eagle-eyed prophet, tells us here in chapter 9, as this is one of his messianic prophecies, he's talking about the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, who was to be born as the Redeemer of Israel. But as a matter of fact, we have to understand, not only was he born to be the Redeemer, but why does he need to come as the Redeemer if there were not people who needed redemption? Why is it that he has to come and redeem the people and a system if the system and the people were not broken and in need of repair? Us a son is given, but watch this, it's not just any child. It's not like the child born down the street. It's not like the child that was born the other day. There was something unique about this child. The Bible tells us he was a child and a son. Why? Because the human side of him was the child of Mary, but the divine side of him was the Son of God. He had to have two natures because his human side had to be able to identify with us, but his divine side had to be able to deliver us. It's not enough to identify if you can't deliver. It's wonderful if you can identify with my problem, but you can't do nothing for me. Then what's the use of me telling you? And what do you want to know about how broke I am if you ain't got no money to fix it? But as a son, he says, I'll wipe every tear from your eye. As a child, he understands when I have problems in my mind. But as a son, he says, I'll keep you in perfect peace if you keep your mind stayed on me. As a child, he can identify. But as a son, he can deliver. I'm about to take my seat, but he says that he's going to have a name. He will be called Wonderful Counselor. Is there anybody here who's ever had to get some counsel and some advice before? Now see, I know we get counsel from a whole lot of folk, and opinions are like noses. Everybody got one. And there's some folks that had opinions over your life, and they'll tell you what you ought to do in your situation, even though they have no clue about your situation. Well, I'm going to tell you what I would do. See, if that was my husband, you ain't never been married, you ain't even got a man, ain't had one in 10 years, don't tell me what I ought to do in my own house. Well, see, now what you need to do with them kids, you got 4 kids and you don't even have none. Don't tell me what I ought to do with my situation when you can't relate to my situation. But my God can relate to everything. That's why he's a wonderful counselor, because he ain't never given me any bad advice. Not only is he a wonderful counselor, but he is a mighty God. See, he don't just tell me what to do, but he got the power to enforce it. I don't have to worry about the Republicans. I don't have to worry about the Democrats. I don't have to worry about my neighbors. I don't even have to worry about none of y'all, because my Bible tells me that he holds the world in the palm of his hands, and he rules in righteousness, and he rules in justice. The songwriter said, joy to the world. The Lord is come. Now let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room. And heaven and nature sing. And heaven and nature sing. And heaven and nature sing. Slap somebody high five and say, joy to the world. The Lord is come. Somebody ought to be glad that the weeping may endure for a night, but joy is coming in the morning. Said a system can never fail those it was not designed to protect.